Good evening, everyone, and welcome to This Week from Rockdale. And as usual, I am your host, Larry Cox. And it's great to have each and every one of you join. I see the audience building here as it usually does after the countdown. And just glad to have each and every one of you join me. Now, tonight, we are privileged to have a very special guest as I am about to bring him on screen. Would everyone welcome Mr. Alex McDonald?
Well, thank you, Larry. I don't know about special, but thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing excellent, Al. I'm doing excellent. I've been staying busy doing, meetings and stuff. I went to a little town hall today. Really was a community gathering for those people at Mountain Valley Estates, and they just wanted to, get the community to rally around them a little bit about their fight with that developer out there. And very interesting once go out there and look at the situation and see how close that construction is. And they didn't really do a really good job initially of buffering that zone from those folks,
Right.
and they're going to have some issues. Just being real. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
but Allie, it's not surprising. You and I both know how the county does and how those things happen, and it's we've we've not had a lot of consistency with planning and zoning because we've just had so much turnover with directors in that department, and I think you and I both know probably why. It's a director doesn't go along, then they get out the door.
Yeah. Toxic, toxic environment. Could you say?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Now let me go ahead and say hi to some folks. We got people joined us. We got Marie Withers, Lisa Lancaster, Mary Boysworth, Charlotte Gellert, Yoga with Joy. We got Jill Oden. We got Angela Asperino, Dan Burks. We've got uh, Valerie Clayton. We have Tina Hobbs. I think that's everybody who has said hello right now. But you know what? There'll be more people say hello and more people join, and we'll be able to say howdy to them when they come on and
Yeah, we
everything.
will. Hi, guys. Good evening. Thank you for being here.
Or she didn't have to do what Oz wanted, or the rodeo was the last straw. I hear you, Charlotte. I got you. I got you. Well, guys, Alex and I wanted to come on here and talk a little bit tonight. A couple of things I'm going to mention, but yeah, I think the key thing we wanted to discuss with you guys tonight was this possibility of severance packages that the county. We all saw the rough draft that was out there that was put out by Voices for Rockdale, which they were able to get through their open records request, right? So Alex and I found that interesting, and I think we may have a little bit different take on it than most people. But I think we're gonna give you that take. And Justin Kenny, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us, Justin.
Yeah.
Alex, if you want to go ahead and start, why don't you? I mean, you and I have talked, and we really agree on this take. We really do, and it's a little bit of a, I think, something
Here's the
people
thing.
might not think.
I want to say this first. I think the entire concept of the policy is misguided. It's kind of stupid, but this is government. It's the kind of thing that government does. They're going to do it. There's nothing we can do to stop it. But I don't necessarily think that it's an entirely bad deal, Larry. And I'll tell you why. Well, let me show people the policy. Make me full screen there real quick,
You got
if you
it.
could.
Yep, I can. Hold on.
So this is the rough draft, I guess, of the policy that was put out, and it basically says they're going to implement some kind of severance pay policy for employees who have served as appointed employees for greater than 90 days but less than 5 years. The benefit shall be 30 days gross pay. Or for employees who have served 5 years but less than 10, it will be 60 days gross pay. And for employees who have served for more than 10 years, it will be a maximum of 90 days pay. Larry, all right, you can switch back. I just wanted to put those numbers out there so that people understood. For those that haven't seen the the document, that's what it states. So it's got a maximum of 90 days pay per employee is what it would cost us.
Let me say hey to some people who have joined real quick.
Sure.
We've got our good friend Daniel Munoz, who has joined us from way up north. We've got Ben and Cheryl Garcia, Corliss Turner, and thanks for the document, Corliss. And we have George Kelichik, the taxpayer, and Mr. Bill Campbell. Thanks for joining the show.
Thank you, guys. So yeah, a maximum of 90 days pay for the longest serving employees, Larry. We have a new administration taking over. It's Janice Van Ness. We all know this. I don't know why I didn't just say Janice is taking over. And I believe that Janice understands the need for cuts to save money in this county. We're bloated, right? We're especially when it comes to staffing, we're exceptionally top heavy. We have directors and assistants to the assistant director, remarkably top heavy. And those folks are all, I mean, put it this way, they're very generously compensated.
Well, Alex, we even have full-time assistants to part-time commissioners.
Yes. Yeah. So here's how I view this policy. I view it as a remarkably cheap way to trim the fat. If, first of all, if you're the kind of employee that takes advantage of this, then listen, you're the kind of employee that Rockdale County doesn't need anyway. But for those that do take advantage of this, I say give them their 90 days pay, let them walk away, because it's going to be a lot cheaper than the new administration coming in, firing them, and then facing the inevitable multi-million-dollar lawsuits that will follow, Larry. Because you know they will happen. You know they're going to come. So here's what I see happening. I see some of the higher levels of staff are going to, I think Larry and I are in agreement on this, on or around October 1st. I think we're going to see, maybe not a mass walkout, but I think we're going to see people leave on October 1st who have their 90 days of severance, which will give them October, November, and December to have a nice vacation, celebrate the holidays, find a job, and then start the new job beginning in the new year. And I think you got a little confirmation of that today, right?
I think I had somebody tell me they thought that was what was going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. But 90 days pay to get rid of some of the bloat at the top is, I think, well worth, maybe not well worth the money, but it's a lot more affordable than the alternative. It saves the new administration having to just cut people loose, and it saves us, the taxpayers, from having to settle lawsuits because we know how much those cost.
I think it's a cleaner purge, Alex.
It's a way cleaner purge.
I think it's a cleaner purge, and you and I have discussed it, and I think also what we can do in the future to prevent severances is we get the local legislation to actually draft for the Board of Commission to send a resolution asking for the county charter to be changed to say that severances can't be issued.
Yes.
And if it's in the county charter, then they can't play with resolutions.
Yes.
So and that's the way to do it. Anytime they want to police themselves, might you say, they just need to get the charter amended so that they can't give themselves permission to do stupid stuff. Right?
But let me ask you this. I'm going to ask you a question. Maybe you can answer this for me. It's not written in this policy, but in another document that we saw, it said that this does not apply to anyone that's fired for cause or anyone that resigns. So who exactly would this apply to?
Alex, I think you can tell what it says on their draft. I really think you can tell it's a draft.
It's a draft.
Right,
yeah, it's going to change.
It's going to change. And I told you when we discussed yesterday, I said, that's just a draft, Alex. I think by the time the final gets about, somebody will be able to resign and be able to get.
Yeah. Now they may listen. It's possible that they're implementing this with the expectation of layoffs coming, right? And in that sense, nobody will have been fired and nobody will have resigned. They will have simply been laid off. Well, again, to me, that's an affordable way to lay people off and avoid the risk of any retaliatory lawsuits. Yeah, is it going to be a chunk of cash up front? Yes, but it will save millions down the road.
And Alex, and I mentioned this to you earlier, you wouldn't be spending any more money because if they leave, you give them that 30, 60, or 90 days, right?
Yeah,
They were going
and
to be working here anyway, making that money, right?
exactly.
And if you don't hire anybody to replace them, you're not double paying. So
Exactly.
you're not increasing the budget whatsoever.
Exactly.
It's a
Cutting the
net
budget by
zero.
for each employee, you're cutting the budget by 75%.
Yeah, it ends up being a net zero. And as long as you don't have that employee, you have a little extra money in the budget that you didn't have them for a month or so.
Yeah.
That you, I mean,
So assuming that that the policy as written is the policy, then I have to assume they're planning on layoffs when the new administration comes in, which I think is a reasonable assumption to make. I think during the campaign it was made clear that, hey, we need to cut. We've got to cut some stuff. And again, I think it's kind of I think it's kind of a ridiculous policy, but it's exactly what I expect from Oz Nesbitt to implement something like this to cover people's asses.
I want to mention, Chuck said something. He said if it's work that needs to be done, you'll need to replace them. This is the thing about it. We've got so many duplicate positions in the county, and we've gone months before without directors that I don't think you do have to replace them. And I think we'll actually see through this attrition that happens that a lot of those positions aren't as necessary as we thought they were, which you and I already know that, right, Alex?
Right.
So I don't think a lot of these positions are as necessary, and government will continue to function without these people in place, and we're going to see that government will continue to function without these people in place, and it'll take away some of the stigma of having to have all these people in place, and it will be easier to make those cuts for this administration at the first of the year. You think that's a possibility, Alex?
Of course, yeah, absolutely. Listen, I know this is it's an unpopular policy, right? People, especially the taxpayers, they're going to look at this and say, well, why the hell should they get severance pay? And I agree. I don't disagree with you. But the reality is they're going to. This is going to be implemented. And so I prefer to look at the upside of this. And what I see as the upside is a large saving and zero liability, because they're all going to have to sign a document now saying, okay, well, we're not going to sue, right? If they take advantage of this policy and they take the severance, they won't be able to turn around and sue us, unlike numerous employees that have been laid off, fired in the past, turned around and sued us for hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Chuck,
Net.
Chuck, I actually get it. You do organizational assessment. I actually run a large organization and can tell you I can lose people and it not impact the day-to-day running of the organization as much as you think it would. I just don't study and organize. I actually run a large organization and will tell you it's not as detrimental as you think it would be. It's really not.
When you look at how bloated we are, how much duplication of positions we have directors, assistant directors, deputy assistant directors.
Exactly.
You know, we can lose two directors in each department and
still
have a director. So,
and still function.
Exactly.
And it's like, we lose people in the private sector all the time through attrition, and we never stop working. And this is what I tell people all the time. It's, you may think you can't be replaced, but the truth is anybody can be. And I even tell in my organization that even I can be replaced. Somebody may do the job better than me. They may not do it as good as me, but they're going to do the job.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing, Chuck. Time will tell. We're going to see what happens. My prediction is that it's going to be the higher level employees that take advantage of this
I think it's
because
going to be the appointed ones, Alex.
yeah,
I think
they're
it's
not
actually going to be the directors. It's
exactly.
going to be
They're
the
not going to
appointed ones.
yeah, they're not going to want to. Some of them are not going to want to work with the new administration, and they're going to take advantage of this. And fair play to them. I don't see any of the. I'm going to call them frontline workers doing this because their options for switching employment that easily are probably a bit more limited than anyone that had the director or assistant director type position, who are connected and contacted and have all the hookups, and they can go wherever they want and do something on the taxpayer's dime, because Lord knows none of them are going to go into the private sector. So Chuck, you may be right. I don't think you are, because I know how top heavy this administration is, this government is. But some of them, it's quite possible that some of them will need to have their positions refilled, and those people, yeah, will take a bit of a hit on it. But I'm willing to bet that overall this is a net positive for the taxpayer.
Well, Alex, and let's be real about what happens at the time period we think this is going to happen, October, November, December.
Mm-hmm.
The county government virtually shuts down from November through the first of the year. And if we all remember last year at this time period, the chairman went to Europe for a 2-month vacation and wasn't even here, right? I mean, that's real. That really happened, right, Alex?
Well, I'm going to say yes, because that's what everybody tells
Well, he
me.
was gone for a month and a half. Whether he went to Europe or not, that's whatever. But he was actually gone for a month and a half, because the record, the ORRs are there to prove he was.
Here's what I heard. He went to Italy to meet with architects and other things related to this. I can't say courthouse project anymore, because, well, it just isn't. Other things related to this administrative complex. I sent some Open Records Act requests to the county, didn't get any response. Well, I got a response to them. They said, yeah, we don't have any documents relating to that. So if he did go, the county, are claiming that it was nothing to do with them. So it may have been just a nice month and a half long vacation on the taxpayer's dime, because obviously he got paid for that.
Well, Charlotte makes this point. She said there's only 2 meetings in November and 2 in December, and one of those is adopting the fiscal year 25 budget. But I also recall these meetings too, and I know some of them have lasted 10, 15 minutes.
Right.
Because there have been no action to take. And then I also recall months when they have these 2 meetings where they've actually canceled those couple of meetings, and they haven't had those meetings at all. So November and December are very slow months. People are gone. And then Ben Garcia makes a point here just now too. Most directors work from home every Friday. So,
they work at home on a Friday. What they're doing is taking a 3-day weekend. Every weekend is what they're doing. Because try getting one of those people, I was going to say another word, but try getting one of those people on the phone on a Friday.
Oh, you're 100% correct, Alex. I mean, it's, we look at this, and, I think, I think years ago, Alex, you coined it so appropriately when you talked about when you saw the budget starting to increase and you saw a trend, and you coined it perfectly when you said this is nothing more than a jobs program.
Right.
And it's just been so accurate that when we see what's happened, we've seen them create departments. We've seen departments go from 3 and 4 people to 20 some people
15,
in it.
20.
Yeah. We've seen this. The same thing happen, right? So yeah, that was hello to Tucker Cox. Tucker Cox did to just say hello to everybody. You know,
He
in the
was
back
saying
room.
hi to Danielle and thanking her
He
for voting
was.
for
He
him.
was. He gets, you know, he's
Thank
like
you.
that. I can't keep him down. You know what I mean?
Thank you for voting for me, Danny. That's what he was saying.
Yeah. So I mean, we all saw this, you know, and then Cheryl mentions the BOE employees doing the same thing. So you know, I mean, you know, and I think we've got out of control in all government in Rockdale County. You know, the Board of Education, the Board of Commission, and the city. You know, and let me tell you what. I was having a conversation with somebody today, right? And we were talking about the city. The city does the exact same nonsense as the Board of Education and the Board of Commission. They get by with it because they'll do something good in between doing something bad. They're a little more tactful, uh, and they're a little more low profile with what they do things. They even developed the art of being sleazy. Just just you know, just being real, right? I mean, because then this person was in agreement with me too that they're just a little better at the manipulation than the other two entities are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you know, and that's reality, because you look at most of the housing issue we got in Rockdale County, most of the apartments and the townhomes, Alex, they're in the city.
Right.
So when we talk about this, you know, everybody beats the county all to hell about it, right? In reality, the city is the culprit for most. They're the culprit for most the liquor store nonsense, the gas stations, and the apartments. It's just reality. But somehow the
Yeah.
county got blamed for all of it, right?
Right. Right.
I mean, Charlotte, anybody in the chat, do you disagree with me? Anybody disagree with me that the city is probably even more at fault in this than the county? CJ
Corner
said, but the
says sounds more
development.
like a buyout offered, not severance. Yeah, I mean it's as I think it was Chuck said, it's a soft landing for Oz's sycophants, is what it is. I imagine they're putting the fear of God into people right now. Oh my God, a Republican's coming in to take over, and they're just trying to scare people into mass walkouts. I don't think we're going to see mass walkouts. Like I said, I think we may see some higher level appointed positions leave, and depending on the number that leave, you know, maybe some will need to have their positions filled, because you know we may need a director of whatever ridiculous
I'm going to tell you,
department
Alex.
going on.
You know that you know you mentioned that about somebody taking that time to snap, but I'm going to tell you something. That's actually not a great time to be unemployed.
Oh yeah,
At that right near the holidays, banking on getting a job at the first of the year.
yeah.
That's
Especially with the unemployment numbers
well,
climbing.
and with the election coming up, the uncertainty,
Mm-hmm.
the economy, right? That's. I mean, so you've got to have people are also going to be looking at that there, and you know, and you know, and I know Janice and Tawanya very. I've got to, you know, I've known Janice for a long time. Got to know Tawanya. They're both reasonable people, and realize they're not going to want to come in and do massive shakeup and
Oh, they're
layoffs and
not
all
going to
that.
do what I suggested.
No,
Here's what I suggested to Janice. On day one at 9 a.m., you perform a roll call, and or 8:30 a.m., whatever time they're supposed to start. Anyone that's not there at 8:30 a.m. on a Monday gets cut loose. Then that Friday at 4 p.m., you do a roll call, and anyone that's not there on Friday at 4 p.m. gets cut loose. That is what I would do immediately going into this just absolute shithole of an administration.
yeah, they're not going to do that, Alex. So, I mean,
No, they're not. They won't.
I mean, they're going to look at this at a, you know, come in, approach it, you know, because, you know, we can say all they want about, you know, they're going to start the transition in October. The reality of it is they don't take office till January 1. There's nothing they can do.
Right.
They may become privileged to additional information, different policies that are in, you know, they may become more aware of the behind the scenes stuff. but they're not going to be able to make any decisions till the 1st of January.
Yeah. But
And
here's my position on that. Anyone that works for government who isn't there when they're paid to be there is stealing from the taxpayer. They're committing a criminal act and they need to go. That's my position. I will always have that position. If you're stealing time, you're stealing from the taxpayers. It should be a prosecutable offense.
Well, I would say one of the first things they'll do is take away work from home Friday.
They need to, yeah.
Oh, I believe that's a done deal, right?
Unless,
I believe taking the work from home Friday is going to be eliminated.
Listen, I'm okay with working from home if they have a way to ensure that people are actually working and not simply stealing time. You know? If there's, I don't know if they're all VPN'd in and there's some kind of tracking ability to be able to monitor what they're doing, which is what a lot of private corporations do, private companies. But yeah, as long as people are actually doing what they're tasked with doing from home, I have no problem with people telecommuting. Just don't steal our money from us. Do the work you're paid to do. That means getting there on time and not leaving until the end of the day when you're supposed to leave. And that's why I would conduct those roll calls. And I would do them randomly. I would drop them in randomly throughout the year. Just to catch people off guard.
And Corliss makes a point about the severance. You can't get unemployment and severance. So, but this thing about it, someone who would be leaving on their own to get severance doesn't qualify for unemployment anyway. You have to be laid off to get unemployment. And there's a difference between being laid off and being terminated, right? And there's a difference between you voluntarily leaving your job. If you voluntarily leave, you do not qualify for unemployment benefits. So I think we're looking at people who are going to voluntarily leave, get severance packages.
Yeah.
And that'll be it. We are not responsible for their unemployment after that. And it would just be goodbye. Mm-hmm. And that's the way it would work. I mean, so I agree with you, Alex. I mean, I don't agree with the severance stuff at all, but I think in the situation we're in right now, probably is the best fit for what needs to happen. And it's going to happen, right?
And it all depends on the final policy. Again, if it goes down as it's currently written, then it's only going to apply to people that are laid off. And Larry and I think it's probably going to be written to allow people to, retire early or resign and walk away with severance. I hope that's not the case. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope it remains the way it is, which means only those people laid off will benefit from them. But it's, in my opinion, that's just an affordable way to lay people off and avoid any unpleasantries, such as massive lawsuits. Because without this, there would be multi-million-dollar lawsuits for wrongful terminations, Larry.
Oh, I agree, Alex. I agree wholeheartedly, and I think we need to be cautious, very cautious moving forward, and I think they are, right?
And then after this round, we can have the law rewritten.
Charlotte, let me tell you, Charlotte just said if you two like it, they won't pass it.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a chance of that.
I think this may be. Let me tell you, Alex. As she did, I just thought of this. I don't know of any time that you and I have both agreed at the same time of anything the county's going to do in the last whatever number of years. This is like a first, right?
Well, I mean, we generally agree on things. We just have different points of view about those.
No,
things.
I mean, this is the first time I think we've actually agreed with a major policy of the county.
Oh, yeah. It's a not bad policy, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think this is the first time. Yeah, and because we agree with it, they got to rethink it now. If we've done something that Alex and Larry agree with, we got to have to relook at this.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing is the new administration can take advantage of this affordably, and then they can get rid of the policy.
Yeah.
You know, if this administration passes it, the next administration can simply undo it.
Well, and that's what I told you is I think they need to go to the legislature and have them actually amend the charter, right? Amend the charter to not allow them to do it, and that puts a checks and balance on them, and that doesn't allow them to change to do resolutions. Put it in the charter, you can't do it.
Right.
So that they put it in there that you can't do it, and they won't be able to do it.
Right.
So I mean, because they got to have a checks and balance on themselves.
Lisa asks if the appointed employee takes the severance package, does that release them from any legal responsibility for irregularities that are found after they leave? No, I wouldn't have thought so. If by irregularities you mean any say criminal negligence that is uncovered, no, there would be no immunity from that.
No, but I would say they would have them sign a release saying that they would expect no further compensation from the county, nor be able to collect unemployment.
Yes.
That would be a reasonable expect if they gave them a severance. In my humble opinion.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't expect many people to try to do this, because think about this from the position of a potential employer asking, well, why did you leave your last job? And the response is, oh, well, the voters elected somebody we don't like. That sends a pretty strong message to a potential employer that you're not likely the most reliable employee they could hire. You know what I mean? So again, I don't know how many people are going to take advantage of this. Time will tell. We shall see. I'm kind of hoping it's a large number of high-level, highly paid employees, so we get to save a bit of money.
Yep, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly, Alex. I mean, and we may have to delete this show afterwards so that it doesn't, not too many, so the county doesn't know, so they don't change their mind. Larry and Alex agree we can't do it.
Right. Right.
I mean, I think we talked about it, and it just makes sense. And I think it, from the liability standpoint and such, just makes sense. But I don't think they're not doing it because it makes sense. You and I both know that, right?
No, I think the timing of this is pretty clear, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're expecting a bunch of layoffs to take place, and Oz wants to make sure that his friends have at least some level of comfort or security for a few months.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
I see that. Yep. Alex, I think that and this is what we all say this all the time, but we very rarely it impacts us that we notice it. Elections have consequences, right? And this election is going to have consequences. The previous couple of elections had consequences because look, we got a PFA out of it with an administrative complex. Notice how I phrased that, Alex, right? Administrative complex.
Are you going to tell people why we're saying that right now, by the way?
What,
or are you holding off for a minute?
No, go ahead.
Some estimates came back, didn't they, Larry?
Yeah.
Some estimates came back for building this courthouse. The estimates that came back were for the administrative part of this courthouse. And the administrative part alone right now is priced at $120 million. Doesn't include any of the judicial improvements. Just $120 million to build Oz Nesbitt's new headquarters. So what are they doing? Are they scrapping all the judicial aspects now, Larry?
They're going to do what they were always going to do. They were just going to renovate that thing and do a little add-on.
Yeah,
That's
there were
all they
some.
were ever going to do. And I understand now that everybody in the courthouse is
There were some
mad.
annoyed judges
They're
right now.
mad. People are mad because they're not
Yeah,
getting their new buildings, their new offices. You know what I mean? They're going to get a little remodel and, hey, go to the basement and be happy.
yeah. But think about how this whole thing went down. Getting the PFA, getting think about how this whole bill of goods was sold to us. This is a need. This is a judicial need, we were told, right? This isn't a want. This isn't something we simply want to do. This is something we need. We desperately need more room for the courts.
The courthouse is unsafe. The asbestos,
Yeah,
the mold, the ADA safety hazards,
yeah.
right? And none of this is all that because they're gonna shut this building down if we don't build a new
Yeah.
one. You remember that rhetoric, right?
Absolutely. Our local delegation screwed us by implementing a PFA based on a lie. They were lied to. I'm sure they. I mean, listen, they're not the greatest character people, in my opinion. They probably knew they were being lied to, and went along with it anyway. But we were all sold this because it was imperative that we revamp the judicial system in Rockdale County. We cannot continue this way. The courthouse is going to be condemned. I tell you, condemned. They were telling us, Larry. And now it's going to be 120 million minimum, by the way, $120 million for the administrative side of it. And we're not going to see anything other than what was already planned, the $20 million renovation of the existing courthouse.
Yep. So Alex, I went to Macon this week for a concert, right? And there's a new amphitheater that was built down where the Macon Mall is. And they have a facilities authority that took over the Macon Mall area, the Macon Mall, and built this new amphitheater, right? So it was a $44 million project. It just opened up like 3 months ago.
Right.
But the facilities authority took over the mall. They took over that thing. And do you know how they bonded it? But do you know how those bonds are going to get paid back?
I imagine revenue from the facilities.
Revenue from the mall rental and
Yeah.
from the amphitheater.
Yeah.
That's what, and it's a very nice amphitheater, and I see what they're doing there with what they envisioned as far as for that mall area to revitalize it. Right, that was an excellent idea, an excellent project for a facilities authority, but
Yeah.
that's the kind of project that a facilities authority was intended to do, Alex.
Yes.
Not a loophole that they found to go max out a facilities authority, with what they've done. And it is ridiculous that we see this in Rockdale County, that our local government was allowed to manipulate and to circumvent this, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's horrific. First of all, they override the will of the people when the people voted on this and said, no, absolutely not. No, we don't trust you to do this. And this is why. This is why we didn't trust them to do it, because now, when it comes down to it, Larry, it's nothing even remotely close to what we were told it was going to be.
No,
This is why we don't trust them.
no, and then this is what Dan just mentioned. There is no money going to be generated from this project, and that's what's supposed to happen with a facilities authority.
Right.
If there's supposed to be revenue generated from the project
Yeah.
that pays for the project.
Yeah, something like Costly Mill would have normally come under a PFA, even though we completely mismanage Costly Mill and it costs us. I don't know how much it costs us every year, but we are deeply, deeply in the red every year on Costly Mill. But that would be something that a PFA would generally manage, something along those lines with the ability to generate revenue.
I went to Charlotte, asked me about the ticket. Charlotte, I had great seats. I paid $54 for the seats, and I think with fees and everything, it was like 70 some bucks a ticket or whatever. But I go to tickets all the time. I mean, concerts all the time, and that was a very reasonably priced ticket for
Who did you see there?
I seen Lauren Daigle.
Okay.
So, and it was a very reasonably priced ticket. especially with the seats that I had. They were There's not a bad seat in that venue, and it was a 12,000 seat venue that was packed. It was full. There was no empty seat in the house, and it was an but well worth every dime that I spent. And the facility was fantastic, ample parking. There was no struggle in that. Easy to get in and out. So it was very, everything was well done. It was very well done, and it was done by a facilities authority that did not burden the taxpayers with having to pay back the bonds.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing we could be doing at the horse park.
Horsepower, or even costly meal. Could
sure.
be done. You could do something there, and I think Janice has got some. I'm not going to steal thunder or anything. She just joined us, but she's got some plans for costly meal that I think are innovative that she wants to do, and I'm glad, because we own it. You might as well be innovative,
and it takes somebody that knows how to run a business to actually run a business, right? And at the end of the day, I know it's owned by government, but Costly Mill is a business. And this administration it's a remarkably failing business under this current administration. Hopefully, Janice will be able to turn that around and make it profitable, make it an actual source of revenue for the county.
Well, Alex, and it's closed. It's closed all the time, and they use it as a private venue.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean that it needs to be more accessible to the public, and I understand with that private stuff they want to do, but they've got to be able to work that a little. That is such an investment for the citizens of Rockdale County. Denying them access to it is, in my opinion, criminal. Denying them access to something they have spent millions of dollars on is just not acceptable to me as a taxpayer, and probably something I'm going to probably start going and asking the commission to do, to make that facility more accessible to taxpayers, because it needs to be.
Right. Yeah, I don't disagree.
Yeah, Lee, Stockbridge also has a very nice amphitheater. It's 15 minutes from my house. Right. The Stockbridge Amphitheater. Right. So they have a hard time booking acts. I'm going to be real with you, right?
Yeah.
That amphitheater has a hard time booking acts, and I'll tell you, and it's access, because that's a difficult little area they've got that amphitheater in. Access can actually kill a concert venue, and you and I know that. Location access. But somebody mentioned earlier, the Macon one, right off you got you're 2 minutes from the interstate one way, 5 minutes another way. You have multiple interstate access to that thing. It was a great location.
That's why I like the horse park, because it's very, very easy access. It's 4-lane highways all the way there, all the way back from the freeway to the entrances of the horse park. Super easy access, very good traffic control. The only bottleneck is when you're trying to get back onto the freeway, but even that's going to be addressed with our new interchange.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. I mean, I think you're right, Alex. I mean, there were just so many different things. I mean, I think a PFA, a facilities authority, was not a bad idea for Rockdale. We just used the money wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
We used the money wrong.
We're certainly not using it for what we were told we were going to use it for, which is judicial improvements. Now we're just using it to pad Oz's ego. That's it.
I agree.
Alex, legacy.
I do want to mention something. Last week on the show, I told folks that I was planning on reaching out to the Lieutenant Governor's General Counsel about House Bill 581, which will be on the ballot as Resolution 1022 this November.
Good, and because I have questions that I haven't been able to get answered. Let's hope that you got them answered.
Well, I wanted to know about the host and the 1 cent tax that the legislation brings. Well, I was told that most likely the legislators did not consider the fact that Rockdale and DeKalb already have a penny tax like that when they did the legislation. He said there's probably a couple other things with the bill they're going to have to tighten up with in the new session. Then I spoke to someone this week, and they told me that you can do 8 cents, up to 8 cents local tax. So there is the room there to do an additional penny in Rockdale, but I don't think the current legislation allows it the way that it's written.
See, and I got to tell you, I take a little umbrance with that because we voted on and passed our host, and and I guess technically at the end of the day we will be voting on this new one, but that means that our resolution in Rockdale is going to have to look different to the resolutions in the other counties because our resolution is going to have to repeal one host and implement a separate host.
It would. It would have to repeal one and replace with another.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what. And I was actually told that what we would have to do is this: since we've got multiple entities that would be involved in the other penny, that each of their attorneys would have to reach out to the legislature. And he actually gave me the portion of the legislature to give to Janice and the city that they would have to actually ask to get an interpretation of. Right. So I know where they need to look at to get the interpretation. And then he did say there's probably going to need to be some tweaking done to the legislation also. And he did tell me also the only way that they were able to get the bill passed was to put the opt-out in it because the ACCG and the other little organization that represents municipalities and the Georgia School Board Association lobbied so hard not wanting to lose the ability to tax you on property assessments.
When is this planned? When's this going to be voted on? November
in the general election.
So that means that this current administration will be the ones that have the ability to opt out?
No, they won't because it doesn't take effect until January, and you can't opt out of something that's not law, right?
Okay.
So once it takes effect January 1, then you have to have 3 hearings, a resolution, and opt out by March 1st.
I mean, ideally, here again, I'll just give you my opinion on this. You tell me whether you disagree. Ideally, for the taxpayers, having both hosts would be great, as long as we could figure out a way to prevent the county digging their little fingers into our existing host the way they do now.
I've talked to local legislators, and I think, talking with the county a little bit, some people, I think everybody realizes they're going to have to amend something because the taxpayers are not going to stand by much longer for that nonsense to happen, right. Alex.
But I think ideally we'd be able to keep both and get double the tax relief. However, if we're only able to have one, then obviously the new one would be the one to get because the county won't be able to keep any of that. 100% or 99% will have to be given back.
And it's the same thing with the host. We only get 99% of the host back because there's a 1% fee that goes to the state for administrating the fund.
But the county get to keep as much of our current host as they choose.
They do. They can keep 99. They can keep every dime they want to.
Yeah. Whereas the new one, the proposed one,
it's mandated. It's mandated in law that they have to actually 100% of that has to go back toward ad valorem reduction. Yeah. 100% of it. 100% of what we get back. Yes.
Well, it's good to know that this administration won't be making that decision.
No, they won't because it won't be law till you can't opt out of something that's not law.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it will not become law till January 1. So once it becomes law, then they have to have 3 hearings, pass a resolution.
Okay.
That's the process. And then what they said, I talked to Clint Crow, he told me the same thing. Then when I talked to the general counsel for the lieutenant governor, it was the same thing. Is they also wanted, this was in there too, because they can look at this as political suicide for any entity that opts out.
You would think so.
That's the way they see it.
We live in strange times, Larry.
Yeah,
we live in a world where Oz Nesbitt got elected to office 4 times. So,
but you got
the king of tax and spending.
Being elected to the post 1 position was it's easy to do that. I think it's easier to get elected to one of those part-time positions rather than this chair position. The fact that he got elected that second time to the chair position was amazing.
Yeah, it tells me that taxpayers just love the abuse.
Well, they didn't pay attention. I mean, he had two candidates that ran against him, and he barely squeezed by with 51 point something. Right?
Mhm.
If he would have got in a runoff, then he would have lost the runoff then too.
Yeah,
right.
Probably.
But he had just enough support to squeeze by in that 2020 election. Yeah. Just squeeze by, right? Just squeeze by. But yeah,
theoretically, it would be political suicide to opt out of this.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to let people know, that I did check into that, and there's still more checking into it to do. So the government entities will need to reach out to the legislature and get a clearer definition of certain sections in the law of how it applies. And I was told you're going to have to clean up some things, so that probably will be one of the things that needs to be cleaned up. And I agree with you, Alex. I would like to be able to keep both, to implement both.
Yeah. Corliss is sharing some numbers on Costly Mill in the chat. We covered that when they bought it, you remember?
Yep.
Because I know the family they bought it from, and they overpaid. The county way overpaid by about $1 million. The county's offer was $1 million higher than the next closest offer. So of course they took that offer. Why wouldn't you? You'd be foolish not to. Then they immediately refinanced. They rolled in. If you remember, Larry, they had there was $4.5 million of wasn't it sewer authority debt that they rolled in and refinanced as new debt under the Costly Mill loan?
I do not recall what loan what the loan was from. I think it was
sewer authority
but
debt.
they did roll in another one. And Alex also, she mentioned something here. She's got, and I believe the last 3 years, $400,000, right?
Right.
That's not real revenue, right? Because you and I both know they have salaries they're paying that's going to be more than 400,000.
Right.
So they've actually lost money.
Yeah, oh God, I remember.
Remember the year that they said
that first year of revenue, they said they were so proud. Oh, we made $110,000 this year. No, you didn't. You collected $110,000, and then you paid out I think the person running the park alone was making 80, and then there was all the other staff, and they were upside down like 300 grand.
Yeah, so they're big time they're upside down on this right now. Yeah. You and I both know that, right?
It's ridiculous. That $7 million is a low estimate. That doesn't factor in the yearly losses. It's crazy. It's crazy how government operates, I swear. We would all be in jail for fraud if we operated the way government does.
Well, we would be fired. None of us would have a job.
Right.
In the private sector, no one would have Alex, I just tell you, after that ridiculous Parker Road deal, no one up there would have had a job after that deal when he first 6 months he was in office.
Right.
But that set the trend, right? We should have known when that was one of the first deal they did. We should have known what we were in for, right?
Yeah. Catherine has a good point. What about them slashing the host this year because they need more money for M&O? That's what Will Barkley, the owner of 2 homestead exemptions, that's what Will Barkley said when he was up at the podium, that they're taking more money from host because they needed to make up revenue for maintenance and operations.
Can I tell you something, Alex?
That's illegal.
They're not allowed to use that money for M&O. It has to be used for capital expenditure. So they're admitting they're breaking the law.
Yes. Yeah. And listen, the video's right there, unless they've scrubbed it already. The video's right there. Anybody can take that down. But I mean, what are we going to do? All you could do is sue them, and who's going to sue them?
Yeah, well, and we can demand our next administration come in and not break the law.
Yeah. They also spent $1.5 million for an event center and want to hire 4 full-time event coordinators. See, again, it's a jobs program. 4 brand new employees to do absolutely nothing because they're not renting that place out.
Catherine said she tried to call them out on that thing with the host.
She did.
She ran out of time
at the meeting.
Yeah.
I saw
yeah.
that.
So and they're not allowed to spend that money on anything but capital expenditure, and they get up there and say, we've
Yep.
got to use this money for M&O, which is illegal.
Yep. But they're
Yeah.
not going to respond to it because why would they? We're just peasants. We don't matter.
We don't matter.
It's just our money, and to them it's disposable. And if they run out of it, they're just going to take more. And
Yep.
that's exactly what they're doing. They're taking more of it from host to pad their budget so that they can pay their pay their salary increases and benefits increases and fund their severance packages at our expense.
Alex, we've got, we said elections have consequences, right? So we've got new people coming into office, and we've got to give them an opportunity to right these ships.
Yep.
And
But I did say 4 years ago, I said maybe some people need to experience 4 years of pain.
And they have.
And that's what happened. And look what they did. They turned around and voted these people out. Yeah.
Well, Alex, but you got to remember, you got a group of people who just before they got voted out thought they were so invincible, they gave themselves a raise.
I know.
Right.
Just
I mean,
tone
and
down.
they didn't even see this stuff. I mean, just piling on. I mean, I think the raise thing might have been the thing that capped the end.
It's remarkably tone deaf, and it's because they live in their echo chambers. They're surrounded by their little sycophant friends that tell them they're doing a great job and that everybody loves them, and they believe it. They take it to heart. They think it's true, and they got a rude awakening.
Well, let me tell you what I like best about House Bill 581, Alex. What I love best about House Bill 581 is the floating homestead.
So I spoke to Clint, and listen, I couldn't get any actual answers. So explain how that works, because that's been one of my primary questions. What happens when the value of your home goes down? How quickly? Because your home value is fixed for 3. Is it 3 years or 2?
No, it's only fixed for 3 or 2 if you do an appeal.
Okay, so with this, is it reassessed?
They have to
year?
reassess your property every 2 years.
Okay.
So your property has to be reassessed at least that much, right? And if there's a significant downturn, then yes, the property values will go down, right? That's what I like about this legislation versus what the Senate legislation was. The Senate legislation was going to give them the ability to automatically just raise it 3% every year, right? Mm-hmm. This legislation doesn't do that. This legislation actually goes with the rate of inflation. If the rate of inflation actually goes down, Alex, you'll adjust that year.
Yeah.
The tax office will adjust that. The state revenue the office will adjust down that year because of rate of inflation.
Yeah.
So the rate of inflation will adjust that.
Yeah, and the reason I think it's important is because we've been talking about it on my other show. All the red flags are there, Larry. All of the warning signs are there of a real estate, let's call it a correction. I don't want to call it a crash, even though it's going to be a crash. We'll call it a real estate correction. All of the warning signs are there right now, and we are stampeding towards it. Well, I want to make sure that my taxes go down as quickly as they went up. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I need, if the value of my home drops, I want to make sure that this legislation is teed up and ready for that, so that I'm not continued to be taxed on a home valued at X when it's actually worth Y. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. So they're mandated to actually evaluate your home now, right? So and then inflation, that's an automatic built in too. If inflation's up or down, then it's going to adjust with inflation also. So and that's why they said they wanted that in there, because it wasn't just an up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that gave it that down push also with going by the rate of inflation.
Right.
So, but what it does is this. Let's just say this year, let's just say your house is valued at $350,000 this year. Next year it goes up to $400,000. That floating homestead, you're going to get an additional $50,000 on it you're not going to recognize that increase in your home value on your taxes, because that homestead is going to, you're going to get 50 grand from that exemption capped. Let's say the next year they say it goes up 75,000. Great and dandy. Capped. You get 75,000 more. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that floating homestead is going to what it's going to do is it's going to lock you in at a value.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're not going to be able to get those taxes on that assessed value like they've been getting. But it's going to force them, if they're going to raise your taxes, Alex, they're going to have to do it, look you in the eye and raise that millage rate, and not be able to lie and say they didn't raise taxes.
Yeah. We didn't raise them. We didn't raise taxes. We kept the millage rate the same. You idiots.
But that takes that away, Alex. Let me tell you, you've
idiots.
seen how you've seen how whimper they are about that, right?
Oh yeah.
They're not going to have the guts to give you a 2 or 3% millage rate. They're not going. First time they do it, they'll take so much pressure, they'll never do it again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's and they pulled the same old song and dance this time around. Well, 75% of the of your tax bill goes to the school system. They completely ignore the host.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. They get an offset with the host.
Right.
But they didn't get as much offset this time because they took it.
Right. They took it. So yeah, it's the same old song and dance, the same old lies, the same old gaslighting that they try doing every year. And unfortunately, people believe it because people see their tax bill and they see the high number for the school system and the low number for the county, and they think, wow, my county taxes actually are way lower. But you're forgetting about the taxes you've prepaid throughout the year into the host.
Yeah, you got an offset with the host. The host offset your taxes.
Yeah.
And that's what I like.
I call it, it's a rebate because you've been prepaying every time you go shopping in Rockdale or to get a goods or services. You're paying tax. That's your.
Well, and I'm going to tell you, Allie, if they won't let us have both, the county's not going to like that. We're going to want to get the other penny because they're going to lose a portion of it.
Well, this is what I'm saying. If we're able to keep both. That's what I said. We've got to come up with a way to prevent the county dipping into that additional penny, because the way they do, we got to, the new penny is safe. The existing penny is at risk. And the county could say, oh, well, they've got the new penny. Let's just keep the existing one all for ourselves. We got to figure a way.
Well, they're going to keep the host all by themselves. I mean, they're going to do that. And that's why the county won't want to. If we can only have one, county won't want to give up host because they won't get the whole cut of that other penny.
Sure.
Because you have to enter into an intergovernmental agreement. The county and the BOE would get the lion's share because there are more homes, and then the city would get a percent versus homes that are in their limit. But
my position though is if on the off chance we get to keep both, we've got to figure out something. So I don't know, some local legislation or something that prevents the county from taking all of that money from the host like they currently do from the existing one.
I think that would happen, Alice. I think our local delegation would be pleased to introduce legislation that would do that.
Good.
I think the delegation we have now is a very pro voter delegation.
Good.
And I think they would be very willing to help the taxpayers of Rockdale County. Alex, it's 9:06. We've gone. We've talked a lot about different stuff. So, Alex, if you want to close up a second, then I'll close this out.
Listen, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. It's always nice to come on and talk to folks. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I know Larry appreciates it. I appreciate it. Just go and follow Corliss's pages, and because Corliss is out there keeping everybody informed. Obviously, follow Larry's pages. Stay tuned for Larry's public meetings that are coming up. I'll be going to those. September 10th, I think you said.
September 10th, and we'll be announcing the venue here in the next couple of weeks. I'll make the phone calls this week because I think someone had offered me the opportunity to have one somewhere, and I'm going to take that individual up on it because I think it'll be a
Yeah, I
great.
think it's a good idea.
I think it'll be a great opportunity to just do a lot of sharing in the community.
Yeah, I think so too. But yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thank you. And thank you everybody for tuning in. Love you guys.
Hey, everybody! I just want to thank you for joining me tonight, and it was great to have Alex on the show. I always love having Alex on the show. We get to bounce things and the different perspective of stuff. Great audience tonight. Great to have had all you guys on the show tonight. And we loved having your input and your thoughts also. So next week, joining me back here on Facebook and YouTube at 8 p.m. on Sunday. And we will have another exciting version of This Week from Rockdale. And we'll dig into as Rockdale County turns one more time. So thank you, everyone. And I will see